Oh, hello. Hello. Who's there? Hopefully you'll be able to see me. I'm just, you might see me just faffing around with stuff. And basically, um, I am, I've got my mouse down at the bottom here so that I don't make some weird noises. So I am hopefully live and people can see me. If you can see me, please say something in the chat, which would be really lovely. And I'm gonna get started, I think. Let's move that over there a little bit. So welcome to my live Q&A. Now I apologise if my eyes keep on going in the wrong direction. I'm trying to shimmy myself around in the studio, and I apologise if you can see dogs floating around in the background as well. So I need to try and keep looking at the green light on my camera, and I keep forgetting. So apologies for that. So my Q&A today, we are going to do a few things. I've got my headphones on just so I know if things are going a little bit awry. Oh, thanks. Thank you, K-Cat. I tied it up because it was looking a bit grim actually. So even though I washed it and dried it and everything, so anyway, but thank you. Yeah, so I've got my headphones on just because my sound can go a little bit funny sometimes, and sometimes I don't hear stuff in the background, so I just needed to make sure that everything was okay. So first things first, welcome. If you've got anything to say, please say it. You know, if you want to chat, all that type of thing, please do. I'm going to be working on the lovely. Hang on, I'm just gonna. No, not that. I'm just gonna make this window a bit smaller so that if. So I can see any chat that comes up. That's fine, just do that. Okay, so the first question, and I've got everything written down here and on an email as well. So the first question was from Vicky, and it was basically around how do you create the layers. Hi Dawn. Hi Daryl. Yeah, how do I build up layers on drafting film without all of the pigment going, what were Vicky's words, moving around and smooshing. So she wants to add dots of colour that are sort of like quite clean, but not sort of yeah, blending into each other so much. So I'm just going to get a shot of me for a minute, and we're just going to work on the cat. Nope, not that one. There we go. So we're just going to work on the leopard for a second. I'll just move my microphone very slightly. There we go. So we've got the leopard here. So this is the drafting film. This is the tutorial that I'm working on at the moment. Oh gosh, sorry. I'm just going to move my microphone again. And I've got some colours that I'm going to be using. I'm not going to do a full drawing, whatever, but this is just around Vicky's question about how do you add really, really, really soft colour and how do you add the layers. So if I look at this area up here, now how I've been building that up, I actually started with the, no, that's not the right one, Bista, although that would work actually. I actually started off with the brown ochre. Not sure where that's gone. Let me have a look. Oh, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. But I did actually start off with the brown ochre and not the Bista. But hey, we'll put the Bista in anyway because it's not going to make much difference. So what I start to do is I start to add in very, very, very light layers of fur, and when you first watch somebody doing this, you just think, oh my god, this is going to take years and years and years. You know, it's almost like we're kind of going against what everybody says. Don't draw every single hair, draw clumps of hair, you know, that type of thing, and that is absolutely right. But with something like this, just remember that your pencil width, the width of a pencil stroke, is the same as a stroke of a hair. So actually you can get all of your lovely detail and lovely texture in there really quite easily, especially on the drafting film, because the drafting film, you don't have to put hundreds of layers in there. You know, you can just put a few layers in. So you can see there I've added these bits, and then if I go in with something like the Pablo Umber, I can then start to put in just the very, very fine hairs on the top, and all of a sudden you have got your leopard fur there. I haven't really had to do anything at all. It's there. I've not had to blend. I've not had to put 10 million layers on. It's just there. So what I would say when using drafting film, whatever type of drafting film you use, this is Duralar. It's about the strength of pressure that you are putting on the paper. The pressure I'm putting on the pencil to put the pigment on the paper on this particular piece is so light. It's just crazily light. You know, you really it's the lightest pressure you can possibly get away with to put pigment on the paper, and that is how you can manage to get those few layers in. Oh, hello everybody. Who have we got? We've got K-Cat, we've got Anita, we've got Jill, Penny, Anita, Janice. If you get a moment, could you give me a quick explanation of layering? Yes. Oh, well, hopefully, Bee Sparkle, this will help, because you're going to be doing a very similar thing on the Bristol Smooth. What you'll find probably with the Bristol Smooth is that you might get a little bit frustrated in that it's quite difficult to get really good depth. But the key is not to go, oh, this isn't working, I'm going to really attack the paper and put really hard layers in. The key is to go really softly, like I'm doing on this drafting film, and build your layers really lightly. So as you can see on here, I've put 2 layers in there. Then if I get my black, which is another Polychromos, I can just whisk in these little guard hairs here, and I can just add a little bit of detail if I want. This one's a bit different to the Fjord Pony one because I'm actually putting all of the detail in first, you know, rather than sort of whacking a load of colour in and then using the slice tool on it. So I'm actually building the hair with my pencils quite gradually. But you can see there how I'm able to build really nice fur actually, just with 3 layers basically. The teeth actually, they were dead simple, and I agree, I think they look really great, but they were dead simple, and it's just about getting your colour in. And actually these grainy bits here, that was a mistake. I meant them to be really smooth, but actually it's come out really good, and they look better to have these little grainy bits in, because if you look really closely at the photograph, there are some grainy bits in there. So that worked really nicely. The key or the trick for getting realism like this is layering your colours, but getting your darks dark and your lights light. So this bit here is really relatively light. This bit up here is quite dark. In fact, it probably needs to go a little bit darker. This bit here, when you come to watch the video of the tutorial, I really struggled with this, really struggled with this area, and I ended up having to go into the back of the film quite early on to get some of this darkness. But back up to the layering. And something that we're going to be talking about in a second as well, which is one of the questions that K-Cat added in, is around choosing your colours. You know, specifically sort of like because I talk about choosing the lightest colour and then working from there. So I'm going to share my screen in a minute and talk through a little bit of that. But yeah, so this is all it is, the lightest pressure you can possibly use on the paper. And if you feel, oh gosh, it's gone in too hard, well, you can just use either your little, I've got a few Tombows. Hang on. So I've got a couple of Tombows, whether you can see those. I've got the little tiddly one, this one, and I've got a bigger one. They're a bit grubby actually. And you can cut the ends and you can mould the ends and you can shape the ends. I've created these whiskers using this Tombow rather than the slice tool, because I had a bit of an accident with the slice tool and I'm not quite sure whether it's the paper or whether it was me, I'm not sure, but I've used the Tombow instead. But the other thing as well is, if with these black hairs up here, I put them in and I just go in with a putty eraser and I just gently just dab, not take them off completely, but just dab them off, so you keep the pigment but you just sort of lessen it a little bit, you knock it back a little bit. And it's just about being observant. It's about, I need to look at how this fur goes, because that's what's going to make the realism for you, and looking at all of the different sort of colours and swooshes and how things sit. So that's basically how you would get your pigment onto the drafting film. So if I come back and come here I am. Ta-da! I'm going to turn off that, and I'm going to put on my screen capture, and I'm going to come into Photoshop. Here we go. Now, hopefully, if I put this here, I'm hoping that you'll be able to still see the Foxy Loxy here. If you can't see the fox, because my face is in the way, give me a shout. Anyway, so what we are looking at here, this little fox, let me bring my microphone back again so that you can actually hear me. We may be able to see that as well, how exciting. So what we've got in this fox, and this was a question, or one of the questions from KCAT, is around, I always talk about, I do things all sorts of different ways, to be honest, but I do talk about picking your lightest colour first and building up from the lightest colour. So if you look at this little fox here, that's definitely on there, that's fine. What we are getting, I see fox, oh hurrah, thank you. So what we've got on this fox is we've got some absolutely gorgeous colours. Okay, we've got reds, we've got creams, we've got yellows, we've got oranges, we've got browns, we've got blacks, we've got greys, all sorts of colours. And of course, when you look at this, you're going to be going, don't know what colours to use. Now, if I was going to be doing this fox on pastel map, I am going to be looking at the lightest colour that I can see to put down as a base. So I will be looking at creating just a very, very light base of all of the hair, so I get the structure of the fox's face, I get all of that lovely hair going in the right directions using the lightest colour that I can see. Now I would do that if I was just working on a section, and I would do that if I was working over the entire fox. So if I was creating this piece a little bit like I created the Bernard tutorial, where I actually layered over the entire area and then put another layer and then another layer and another layer, I would start off with a very, very, either a light cream, a creamy colour, sort of like ivory or something like that. I've got, now then, what have I got in here? I would probably use, I would probably use an ivory, so a polychromos ivory. I don't know if you can see that. I'd probably use that on, and I do this on white, because I really like the white paper. You could do it on the dark grey as well, or you could do it on any colour you wanted. Might even be quite nice on sort of like the sand colour. And yeah, K-Cat, I chose a fox specifically because I know you were wanting sort of colours for foxes. Now I would this is the lightest colour that I would start with, and I would put in all of those gorgeous furry bits in the direction of the fur. So you've got this whole almost like the fox is there. It's almost complete. Well, it's not complete at all. What am I talking about? Total and utter rubbish. You've got a layer that gives you a really good idea of what the finished product is going to look like. You've got movement in the hair. You've got the hair direction, and you. This is the colour that I would use. I would then go, right, okay, what's the next colour? Now this is where I start to kind of skip around a little bit, and it could be that I go, oh, well, do you know what, I'm going to put some dark in because I need to be able to know how dark are the darkest areas so that I can get the lightest areas light, if that makes sense, which probably doesn't. So I might go in with like a really, really dark grey. I can see around here as well, around his nose here, this is quite bluey, or I'm seeing it as quite bluey. You know, so I might go in and just add to that form of the would the entire first layer be white, ivory or cream? Well, what I would do is on this I'd be doing it on white, and my first layer would be this colour, would be the ivory, I think, and I would even put it in underneath here. So even in these areas here where you've got this really dark, rich, reddy brown, and you've got these gorgeous oranges coming up here, I'd even get it under there because actually you've got quite a lot of this ivory in there. You know, and that's how your layering starts. So going back a little bit to B Sparkle's question about layering on Bristol Smooth, and again the same as on the drafting film, layering is the same whatever paper you're using. It's about choosing your colours and using them wisely, basically. So I would have probably the entire area where I can see. I mean, obviously, where there's white, I'm not going to be putting cream because that's just you know, there's no point. So in these hairy bits here, I'm probably not going to put cream. But everywhere where I can see, you know, these lovely reddy areas, there'll be some cream in there, and it's going to really, really help you. Okay, so we're looking at cream. Then we might go and we might use something like, oh God, I've got all sorts of things here. Now I wouldn't use any pinks on this, and that's unusual because I do tend to use pinks quite a lot on sort of orangey animals. I'm definitely going to be going for the sort of like the umbers and the ochres. So we'll probably be looking at the burnt ochre, which is a polychromos again. Hang on, so what have we got here? Sarah, let me just tweak this over a little bit so I can see. Yes, makes sense. Great advice, thank you. So light, very dark, then mid-tones. Yeah, well, yeah, and it depends on what day it is, how you're feeling, and what you've had for tea, really. I know that's not very helpful, but that's all. That's how I can describe it. It's basically how you feel. But I would definitely put a light one down first, and I would definitely try and indicate your dark areas because that's going to really help you with road mapping. So you know, you've got something. I know it's there. This bit comes down to here. This bit comes down to there, and I know, you know, that's how it goes. You can there are no rules, so you can do whatever you want to do. And basically I always think do something or work on it how it's going to be easiest for you, you know. So if you want to work from light all the way up to your dark, perfect. If you want to start with all of your darks, which I know a lot of artists do, and I think is a good idea, perfect. Whatever works for you and makes life easier for you, I would highly recommend doing that. And then it's just a case of picking your colours. So I tend to really like the Studios. Oh, I've got them all in here, stupid woman. The Raw Umber. This is the Studio Raw Umber. This is a really, really, really amazing colour. It kind of morphs into all sorts of different colours when used with other colours. But it's such a great natural brown. I would use this an awful lot in this particular fox. They're waxy, they're very subtle, so you're not going to get a huge amount of pigment coming out at all. But this mixed in with your polychromos, mixed in probably with some Lightfast. I have to say, I'm not a massive fan of the luminance on Pastel Matte. That's just me. Some people love them. There are certain colours that are brilliant, and actually the brown ochres would be pretty good on this as well. And you would just layer in your colours. So you'd have a lovely layer of your cream, and then you would choose your next colour up. So it might be your burnt ochre. You know, you might decide to put some Bista in there, and it's only until you've got those layers there. Studio Venetian Red, fantastic, Anita, yeah, and that is going to be amazing for all of those sort of ready bits around here. And then you can mix in sort of like Caput Mortuum violets. Actually, the Studio Mars Black, no, Lightfast Mars Black would be amazing here. But incorporate that as you go. Don't put it in too quickly, because if things go a little bit awry or a little bit rogue, you want to be able to lift it up and you know, and sort of rectify it. So just go slowly. All of these hairs in here you can build in really nice. I mean, this is a gorgeous photo actually. This is one from oh gosh, what's his name? Paul Sawford. He's got some really beautiful photos. And this is really nice, and the fur and everything's really nice. But yeah, just building those layers up very slowly, very gradually. And what you want to try and do is build in the fullness of that fur on the face. So getting this sort of fluffiness. And you want to make this bit here look as if it's set back a little bit, and this bit here look as if it's almost like a cat fur, you know, where you've got that puffiness around the eyes, which is a little bit tricky because you can't see the bone structure like you can with a horse or a dog. Yeah, and once you get the texture in here, and once you get the fur lines in here, you can then start to glaze over with some of your other colours. So you've got some really quite, in fact, let's just blow that up. You've got some really quite strong oranges in here. For me, these would be like a Persian orange from the Lightfast range, which is gorgeous. Doesn't matter what makeup pencil you're using for all your colours. Are some better than others? Do you just have favourites you use? It doesn't matter at all, Penny. It doesn't matter. It's personal preference, and the more you do, the more you start to love whatever pencil you use. And I would say, ask me what colours I'd use for this fox. Ask another coloured pencil artist what colours they'd use for the fox. We probably have a few similars, but then we'd probably have completely different colours. And it's what we see, and I think it's what we favour. And I know what colours I'm gonna what colour I'm gonna get when I'm using particular colours, and I think you tend to kind of favour colours. I must admit, the new Lightfast, when they came out, the Persian orange is just utterly glorious, and that mixed in with the Mars Black, oh, honestly, just fantastic colours, and the light ones as well. So you could do all of this in the Lightfast. You know, you wouldn't need to use any of the colours. You could just use the Lightfast. You could just use the Studios if you wanted to. You could just use the Artist range. You could just use Polychromos. You could just use Pablos. You know, it's entirely up to you. I tend to choose colours for how they feel, or pencils for how they feel. But that's just me. I'm a bit weird. You know, and you can use anything you like. I mean, all you have to do is look at a Facebook group with loads of different coloured pencil artists in, and they all use different makes of pencils, and they all create absolutely beautiful work. So it really honestly doesn't matter. The layering process, I think, is probably very similar. I tend to try, and I really would like to do the fox, actually, Pearl. I quite like to do him. It would be, yeah, I've always wanted to do a fox, and I've never done one, and I think this one's quite nice. actually. I think he's quite a nice little fox. He's got some beautiful photos, and this bit here, this sort of bluey grey area of fur is just, yes, that's a thing that dreams are made out of. If you're a bit strange like me. Heard you mention glazing. What is glazing? Well, for me it's about when I've put layers down and I've got texture down, and maybe I'm kind of coming to the end of creating a piece. That's one way that I would glaze. So I would say I was drawing this fox and I got everything in place, all of my colours in, I'd got everything there, and I just wanted to really, really enrich some of the areas. So if we just blow him up a little bit more again, so if you can see these really, really gorgeous orangey bits, dark orangey bits in here, I might not, when I get to yes, Penny, we're not talking about creaming, we're talking about glazing. And yeah, what I would do here is I might not have got quite the vibrancy that I want. And one of the best pencils for getting a really, really, really vibrant orange, red, just pulling everything out and making it look, you know, have more depth, more vibrancy, is the Polychromos orange glaze, which is that one there, and it is quite a bright orange. So if I use this very, very, very lightly over the top of my other layers, so I'd come in and I'd go over the top of these orangey bits here. I might put a tad in this bit here, or I might choose a dark red or quite a bright red and glaze the bright red over this area here. And it's a little bit like I was saying on the drafting film, use the lightest pressure you can possibly get to get any form of pigment on the paper. But for me, when I'm glazing, I'm not looking to actually add colour specifically. I'm just looking to add, this sounds really silly actually. I'm looking to not add colour at all, but just enhance the layers underneath. So when I put this pencil on the top, I'm not looking to see the strokes, and it's almost like a subconscious colour. And what happens is you put it in over the top of the other colours that you've got in here, and it just brings everything out. It just brightens everything, it makes everything richer, and it gives it a glow. So for fur like this pencil is amazing, is awesome. If you were drawing a black dog, so like a black Labrador or a black Spaniel or something like that, when you come to the end of it, you might think, it just needs lifting a little bit, it just needs something extra. You could use something depending on the temperature of the dog. So if you've been using lots of blues or lots of reds to get the temperature of the black colour, I very, very often will use a bright pink over the top of the black in areas. Again, you don't see the pink, you know, but it just adds something, and it really does, and that's what I call glazing. It's just very, very light pigment over the top of other colours, not to add the colour but to enhance the colours underneath. That, you see, I could have said that in like 2 minutes and we'd be done, but no, I had to waffle on. So anyway, yes, well done, Jill. So that's basically how I would create this little foxy here. So right, I can't see any other questions there around that. You've explained that really well and does make sense. Oh, brilliant. I'm really pleased about that, because sometimes I can waffle on a little bit, as you probably know from my videos. So next question. Let me just come back here and get rid of the screen, and let's put that video capture on there. Okay. In fact, I'm just going to make me a little bit bigger So hold your horses just in case I scare you. We're like waffling. Well, thank goodness for that. Right, so I've got a question from Julianne, and I don't know whether Julianne is here, but the question from Julianne is about making copies of your finished pieces. Okay, so it's about creating a print, a giclée print from your pieces. Basically, what she was saying was she loves her pieces. She does her commissions. She doesn't want to sell them on, or not at this point anyway. But she'd like to keep a copy of what she's done. So what is the best way to create a so I keep on looking at the screen and not the thing up there. I'll look at the thing and then I'll be just staring at you all. She wants to create a print of her pieces of artwork. So for me, there are a couple of ways of doing this. Thanks, Jill. God. Yes, so there are a couple of ways of creating prints of your artwork. I mean, you can get a decent quality printer, and I did a little bit of let's get my notebook out. I did a little bit of research today about printers, and I'll put a link in anyway about some of the best printers, but there's the Epson Expression, the Epson SureColor, and the Canon Pixma Pro, and they are all supposedly some of the best printers for running out your own prints. Now, if you decided you wanted to go down buying your own printer and run your own prints out, you would need to make sure that the paper if you want to keep it for yourself, it doesn't really matter, does it, what paper you use, because you can just print them. You can scan them in and print them out, and it's it's fine. Oh, you look at your nose around my studio. I've given you the corner of the studio that's tidy. If I showed you the rest, it's not. There's boxes everywhere because I've got loads of stuff that's gone to an exhibition, and all of the boxes and everything. Oh, Jill, you've got the Epson SureColor. Brilliant. That would be really, really good actually to hear about how you think about that. I mean, you can type it in here if you want, or we can put something together and Epson SureColor. Yes, and we can send a link and we can talk about that on Patreon and let people know what you think. But the paper, if you're going to be selling your prints, the paper, obviously the quality of the print is important, but the paper is really important. You are looking for archival, non-yellowing, acid-free paper, basically. And I know that Hannah Muller, I think is the name of the paper, they do really good print paper. And I would say if you're looking to buy a big printer and do all of your own prints, I would say go and watch Bethany Veer's video on YouTube where she talks about all of the all of the stuff that she uses in her studio, because she talks about her printer on there and the paper that she uses. And I think that's a really, really good video to watch. And of course she creates the most amazingly, outstandingly beautiful drawings. That's by the by. The printer that she uses, I think, is I don't know what it is, but she explains it. The ink. So the ink is going to be expensive as well. So that's another thing for you to start weighing up. Is it cost effective to have your own printer, buy your own paper and have the inks? Anita's got the Pixma Pro, creating her own greeting cards. Brilliant printer if a bit of a beast. Takes 8 cartridges and prints up to A3. Brilliant. So I guess I was going to go for the P800, which does larger prints, but the ink is 100. Whoa, that's quite expensive, isn't it? But if you're going to be doing lots of prints, then it's probably cost effective. Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Jill. Epson P800. How do you get a larger image onto pastel mat if I don't have a projector? Like larger than 11 by 14. Tina, I'm going to come back to you on that. I'm going to write it down. And we'll talk about that in a sec. No, never obsessed, Jill. So Tina, hang on, I'm just going to write this down. Larger image on pastel mat. I've actually got a video on that, Tina, which I'll dig out and I'll share a link with you. So I don't have a print. I don't really sell a lot of prints. I don't have a printer at all, but I have had some prints made. So these are the prints that I've had made. So that's my little Elizabeth chicken. This paper, I don't know if you can see, it's really, really lovely paper. There's chicken's bottom there for you, chicken's head. It's really lovely paper. This is the Hahnemühle, but I'm not quite sure what make it is. This was a scan from Pastelmat, so you can see the quality. There, the quality is really, really good. And this is a scan from the dark grey Pastelmat. You can see the quality on that is fantastic. I mean, it really is good quality. In fact, it's almost better than the real thing. And again, this is the same paper, and it's a really beautiful texture paper. And for me, this works really, really nicely with my drawings because I like the softness, I like the subtlety, and plus you've got that texture on the Pastelmat as well. And then this one, same paper again, a little bit more detail. So, oops. So that's freestyle, but you can see all of that detail there. Again, that's a scan and then printed onto the Hahnemühle paper. Now, what I do is I use a company called Square Studios. And he's online, but he happens to be half an hour from me. What's the name of the paper it's printed on? It's Hahnemühle. What I'll do, Tina, is I'll write a bit of a little dialogue when I save this link into Patreon, and I'll put all of that information on there as well. And yeah, so I use this chap called Jonathan, and he's from a company called Square Studios. He's in Harrogate, which is very close to where I live. And basically, I take my original pieces. He scans them on his Epson. I can't remember what scanner he's got, but it's quite a big one, so it'll do up to A3. The difference then is that he is actually a trained repro operator, so he knows all about retouching and creating the scan so it looks exactly the same as the original piece. So I take in my pieces, he scans them, he retouches them against the original. So he's got calibrated screen, all of that type of thing. Can you see the paper grain in your scans? No, I can't, Jill. It's amazing actually, because sometimes it can look really, really grainy, and I do wonder if this paper that they're printed on, I'll show you again, that the you can see it's almost like a cold press watercolour. I do wonder with using this paper, it helps with that graininess that you can get. To be fair, these were all done on board, so it's a lot smoother anyway. But yeah, so this guy, he scans them, he retouches them, and then he's got these massive printers. I mean, they're huge, really, really huge printers, and that's where I get my Giclée prints from. And these cost me, I think, something this sort of size, or a little bit smaller, probably sort of A4, is going to cost me about £8, £7 or £8. And then what I can do is, if I'm selling them on, I can put a markup on that if I want, or I can sell them exactly as this. And he'll also do, I haven't got one with me at the moment, he'll also do canvases. So he will he'll create on a box canvas, so a canvas that's sort of, I'll put a picture in the link as well, but a canvas that's sort of 12 by 12, something like that. It's probably about £15, and they are beautiful. They really are really, really good. The only problem is that if you want him to do something like that, if you're not near, then you have to just email him the image, so you'd need to scan them in. And obviously you're going to need a scanner that has got a high dots per inch DPI scanner. But yeah, that's and that works for me because I don't do very many prints, to be honest. So saying that if I did have a printer and I did have the right equipment, maybe I'd do more prints. I don't know, but that's basically what I do. So you can either buy your printer and do your own prints. Does he just work from the original? No, he can scan in. So if you send him a photograph, he can work from that. You know, not a problem at all. And you can send him stuff online and then he posts out. All right, okay. So that, yes. So that's kind of answered that question. And then what else have we got? That was that. Oh, so Pablo's. Lynn has asked about Pablo's and what Pablo's would I recommend, because she doesn't have any Pablo's. So Pablo's, it's probably back to front. Oh no, it looks okay. Pablo's, gorgeous pencils, really gorgeous pencils. They come in a set of 120. I have got if anybody wants to buy a set of 120, I've got a contact. Actually, she's on. Right, okay, I'll come back to that, Pearl, as well. She will sell you 120 for £125. If you're in the UK, they're £125 including postage, and she'll ship overseas as well. And she's on my Patreon. She's called Mari Wilson. So if you're looking at a full set, £125 is a really good price. So we're asking about the colours that I use. So let's just head back to screen capture and just pop into Photoshop here. So I've got this on my it's on Patreon as a link anyway, but we've got here these are the Pablo's that I definitely recommend having. The white, there's a little asterisk next to the ones that I think are just amazing. The white is brilliant. Anybody who uses white on like toned paper or anything like that, they'll know that the Faber-Castell Polychromos white is fantastic, but use it early on and it's really hard to layer over the top of. So I would prefer to use the Pablo white, which is quite velvety, a little bit chalky, works really nicely on the darker toned pastel matte, and it's just an overall good white. It's a white, and then I recommend having the cream, the ash grey, the beige, the orangish yellow, light grey. Again, really good for black animals and for bringing out highlights in the black animals. Really good colour. Mouse grey. Cocoa should have an asterisk on there because cocoa is the most gorgeous colour. It's like, would you believe, a mug of cocoa. Love Pablo's. Shrink your picture. I can't see the pencil list. Okay, hold on. Let me just. Oh yeah, that's funny, isn't it? Right, shrink that. Go back there. That's better. You need to go smaller. Hopefully that's better. Hopefully, we'll see. Let me know if it's okay. But yeah, the cocoa is a fabulous colour. It really is. And I feel that the Pablo's work incredibly well. Using it on light blue, you can really see the difference against poly. Yeah, I would agree. You really can see the difference with the white and the white the Polychromos and the Pablo. It's bizarre. You know, it's just a much better white. Yeah, and I also think that the Pablo's work really nicely for sort of grey animals, fluffy animals on darker paper, so on the toned paper. The apricot, it's the most, let me see if I can find one, it's the most vile colour in the whole world of coloured pencils. Honestly, look at it, it's disgusting. It just looks horrible. But you put it on paper and you put it in an eye. Let me bring the horse's eye back in here. Look at, I don't know whether you can see that. In fact, let me just go back to get rid of that, and I'll just blow me back up again. If you look at the eye there, all of those gorgeous colours in here, oops, there, and these bits here, that's all Pablo Apricot, and you wouldn't believe that this disgusting colour would have such a dramatic effect, but it really, really does. So questions whizzing by so fast, so trying again. Your eyes are beautiful, but are they more blue or green or grey? What, my actual eyes? I feel like I need to just go right up to the camera and show you my eyes. They're blue, I think. You might be talking about the horse's eye or the chicken eye, but I'm taking it that you're talking about my eyes. They're blue. Yeah. So Caran d'Ache Aquarelle. Oh yes, Caran d'Ache Aquarelles are fantastic. The white is brilliant. You are funny. You are funny. Anyway, so really, really good colour. So those are the Pablos, and again, I will the list is actually in the new members post, and I am working on a new members pack, which I think could be really good for everybody anyway. So next thing, I'm just going to nip to my emails quickly. So Caran d'Ache, right. Right, okay, yeah. So KCAT again. Well, let me just bring that back so that I can actually see what we're doing. Yes, I've got my blue eyes. Yes, not the chicken's eyes, my eyes. Copyright on photography. A really, really, really important question, I think. And something that we really, really do have to be careful of, because it can turn around and bite you on the bum if you don't, if you're not careful. So there are a lot of sites that are copyright free, and again, one if you look at, I don't know whether you follow her, but Sema Martin, and what I'll do is I'll just make a note for that as well. And I'm going to come back to a Pearl on the projectors. I'll just talk about copyright for a minute, and then we'll talk about the pastel mat, and we'll talk about the projectors. But Sema, another fantastic artist, has a really great blog post on copyright and copyright free websites. So I would definitely look at going to have a look at her blog, because I think it will be really, really interesting to see some of the sites that she recommends. So there's Pixabay, there's I can't off the top of my head think of any of them, but she's got quite a few in there that are actually copyright free. And I know that there was some issues with using Flickr. And what happens with some of these bigger sites, Flickr isn't a free photo site. It's somewhere where your photos are stored. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but basically, if you go onto Flickr, I think you need to understand that none of the images, or if you take it that none of the images are copyright free, then that is probably a better thing. Yeah, Unsplash, yeah. I think it is a better way of going, right, that's not copyright free, but I'll see if I can find the photographer. I'll do sort of like where you do a back search or whatever, just to see if it is, and if you can find the photographer, then my recommendation would be contact the photographer. So email them if you can. If they're on Facebook, send them a Facebook message, and just be completely open. Obviously tell them how amazing their photos are. Don't sort of start your message with can I draw this picture? Be polite and be tell them how wonderful their photos are and everything, and just say that you've been, even if you haven't, just say, I've been following you for a while, your photos are amazing, it's just fantastic, I'm an artist, and I just wondered whether you ever allowed artists to use your photography to draw from, and I'll come back to that as well, Tina, about putting the copyright over your image. And basically most photographers will come back and they will either say, absolutely, how fantastic, thank you so much, you know, yes, of course you can use my work. Some artists, some photographers won't reply at all. You know, and they're busy. Not everybody, you know, wants their work to be used by other people, and I completely accept that. And if they don't reply, then that's it. I don't use their photographs at all. And some photographers reply, and they have a caveat. They have, yes, always ask the photographer what colour eyes they have. Yes, that's a good way to start a message. But some photographers will ask you to pay. So they might say, you know, yes, you can use my photography, but you need to buy a print from me. So a print is £36, and then you may use this photograph to draw a picture. And for me, that's perfect. I have a bit of a difficulty then, because my pieces, if I'm going to draw something, it's usually for either to sell or to do a tutorial from. If you're going to sell it, normally that's okay, but a tutorial is very different, because then you're looking at potentially loads of people using that photograph and reproducing that photograph, you know, from something that I've done. So I am always completely upfront when I'm messaging a photographer. And, you know, I tell them exactly what I want to do with the photo, you know, how I'd use it, what I'd be using it for, and where I'd be using it. And then, you know, and then it's completely transparent, and then the photographer can then make a decision as to whether or not they want you to use their photo. So for an example, there's this fabulous photographer in East Anglia in the UK called Simon Litton, I think he's called, and he's very funny, a bit rude, and he photographs hares. As in the rabbits, not hairs. And he is just the most fantastic photographer. And he does photography days as well, which I'm hoping to go on next year. But I asked him if I could use one of his photos, gorgeous photograph of a hare, to draw from and to create, you know, a tutorial from. And unfortunately, he was very happy for me to draw a picture and to sell it, but not to create a tutorial for. And that's fine. That's okay. You know, it's a shame because they're gorgeous photos, but I understand that. And, you know, because basically his reason was he then can't keep control of who's doing what, which I totally understand. So I think just be completely upfront, completely honest, completely you know, tell them exactly what it is that you're wanting to do, and then just go from there. So I'm just going to go back to Tina and the larger pastel mat. Tina, I'm not sure how you're currently transferring your image onto pastel mat, but if you've got a really large image, so say I was wanting, for argument's sake, I was going to use a full sheet of 50 by 70 centimetres, which is, you know, is pretty big. And I was going to do I'm going to use it that way, and I'm going to do a horse's head on it. So it's just one image, but big. What I would do is I would actually print out, if you've only got an A4 printer, I would split my image into 4 and I'd print out the sections. So you probably have 4. You'd have one top bit with the ear there, top bit with the ear there. You might have 6 pieces, or you might have 4 pieces, and basically you would use those to transfer your image onto the pastel mat. It's a bit messy, it's a bit fiddly, but if you're using the transfer paper, then that, for me, that's the best way to do it. You know, and if you're not using a projector or anything like that, that's the best way to do it. And then you basically, if your printer doesn't print edge to edge, you can kind of work it out how it's going to be printed, and you can just cut it and then stick all of the bits onto your pastel mat and work it that way. What you can do is you can move your transfer paper, so you can put it under the first piece, do that bit, shift it over to the next bit, do that bit. You know, you can put little marks on your pastel mat if it's going to help you, and that's what I would. Yes, Excel is excellent for that. And then you can just get the sections of your photos on there. That's how I would do it. I've actually got a video showing me doing an outline using transfer paper, and it was the 4 dogs, 3 dogs, can't remember which dogs, I think it was 3 dogs, and basically I had them all printed out and they were just stuck, and I went through each one and created the outline separately, but that's okay because I could use one piece for each one. Oh, perfect, thank you, Janice, that would be really good, thank you. Yes, do that. Yeah, you could use yes, absolutely. So loads and loads of information there. So you know, if I add a post, then people can just add to it, which would be perfect. So that's what I would do. And then let me just go back to see if I can get in here. Pearl projectors. There are none of your projectors around. I know, it's mad. I don't know what's happening. Artograph have been taken over and new owners no longer producing projectors. What's the next best choice? I probably need to do a bit of research on this, but I would suggest that the next best one would be one that has got a really, really high lumens. You know, so it's basically around how bright the light is, because that's going to give you a higher resolution on your pieces. That's one of the things that I really struggled with when I was trying to find a projector, to be honest. There were all these ones that people recommended and I was like, yeah, brilliant, brilliant. And then you come and try them and sadly the resolution just wasn't good enough. So when you came to project your image, it was pixelated. It just wasn't good enough, and I think that's to do with obviously the resolution, but also the lumens, the amount of light that's projected. Yeah, it's probably a case of doing a little bit of research actually, and I might just contact some of the companies and just ask them for a bit more information. The projector I have is just brilliant, and I'm so pleased I've got it. It's just fantastic. That's the Artograph Inspire 1000, and I do know that Jackson's in the UK are selling the Flare. I don't know whether they've still got any left, but they're selling the Flare for £750. Yes, thank you so much, Janice, because it was yours that I bought. Thank you. I couldn't find one anywhere, and then fabulous Janice messaged me and said, I've got one, would you like it? And I was like, yes, please. So Jackson's has got the Flare in the UK, and it's £750, which is a lot of money for a projector, but I tell you what, it's a lifesaver. I mean, my projector is, I couldn't do without it. I couldn't do without it. I love it. I don't like using the transfer paper because it's dirty. Although saying that, I can't remember her name now, but there's a girl on my Facebook group, the animal coloured artists, whatever. She did a video this last week on how she transferred her image to pastel mat, and she was using, I think it was Langer Nickel and somebody or other, and she didn't get the mess that I got from the trace down. So you know, it might be worth trying a different paper, I think. So right, I've got some other questions, but I think we might be out of time. Let me just have another look. Approaching, no, I think I've pretty much covered everything. I don't know whether anybody has got any more questions. That oh, you've got a Flare as well. Oh, that's, yeah, is that the Flare is just a little bit smaller than the Inspire, but I think it basically does the same thing. Yes, that's it. Thank you, Jill. Lauren Gorbold, if that's her name. She did a little video on. It did, Janice. It did. Royal and Langer Nickel. That's it. Yeah, that's the one that Lauren was using, and she was saying, oh yes, copyright image. Let me talk about that, Tina. So, copyright image over your final artwork. I think that is a personal thing. Personally, I don't. I have done in the past. I take my finished photograph and I bring it into Snapseed, which is an app on my phone, and I can add text in there, and I can add it as like a little button or just straight text or whatever. and I do that when I remember. Some people go crazy. Some people go crazy and put their logo or whatever all over the image, so you can't really tell what it looks like or what it is. It's a completely personal thing. I don't tend to, and I know I probably should. And the reason I don't tend to is because if somebody's going to steal my artwork, they're going to steal it, sadly, and they're going to take whatever I put on it. They're just going to be able to take off in Photoshop. They're going to take off any watermark or anything like that. They'll just be able to remove it in Photoshop. If you're really worried about having your images stolen, then the other good thing to do is when you upload them to social media or your website or whatever, is to make sure that they're not very high resolution, so that if people can't actually blow them up and use them. If you end up putting really, really good quality photos out on Facebook or your website, then that might be an issue. So that might be something that you want to think about. My website, actually, which is slightly annoying because I tried to download some images the other day because I've got a new phone and they disappeared. You can't download images from my website. I've got a new web developer that's doing it, and you can't download any images from my website. So there must be some sort of code or coding or something like that in there. But yeah, I would say totally personal preference. Snapseed's a good app to take your iPhones into and just sort of like write something in there. It's just something. Yeah, 72 DPI, and actually that is still going to give you a really quite a good quality image, actually, Janice. So it's up to you. It's up to you, and I know I should, but I don't. So I think that's it. I can't believe we've had an hour already, and you've got to see me and my beautiful blue eyes. So yes, thank you ever so much for joining me. I hope it's been useful. The next session will be drawing live, which we're going to be choosing colours for a golden retriever, which will be really fun. Thank you all. I will save this link, and any feedback you want to give me, then that would be really fab. I will see you all soon. Okay, bye.